Moments of inspiration mixed with time to network, IBJ Media Events has you covered. From industry deep dives to awards celebrating Indiana's top leaders, see what's coming up and reserve your seat at ibj.com/RSVP.
Welcome to the Indiana Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Maura Johnson, and this is part 2 of our mini-series highlighting how law school hopefuls can best approach the law school application process. In my last episode, I spoke with Vincent Gullo, a Notre Dame law student and adjunct instructor at IU Northwest, about the LSAT prep courses he leads at the university and how his own experiences before and during his time in law school have shaped how he helps students achieve their own success during the LSAT test. In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Colleen McCracken-Rennick, Assistant Director of Graduate and Professional School Advising at DePauw University in Greencastle. Rennick is a pre-health and pre-law advisor, assisting DePauw students and alumni interested in pursuing higher education beyond their undergraduate studies. Rennick joins me to discuss how she supports pre-law students in every stage of their law school journey, from when they first show interest in the field and through their application process. In this episode, she shares how potential law students can determine what area of the law they're most interested in, when they should begin the application process itself, and why any time is the best time to decide to pursue a career of your choosing. Before we get into the episode, let's hear from our sponsor, Taft.
Taft, today's modern law firm. At Taft, we cultivate a highly respectful, transparent workplace that fosters creativity, teamwork, inclusion, and diversity. We couple our culture with a client-first approach, rewarding lawyers who understand their clients' goals and work to deliver success. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
So just to start out, can you tell me a little bit about your role as pre-law advisor at DePauw and what resources the university provides to students interested in pursuing law school?
Yeah. So in my work, I work within our career services office. And the work that we do tries to help students who are anywhere in their law school journey. So if that's from a prospective student all the way to alumni who are interested in pursuing law school. So our students can do what I really help our students with is understanding what they need to go to law school. So if that's specific coursework, guiding them on that coursework, talking to them about majors that they might be interested in pursuing. And then also thinking about what are some of the extracurricular activities that they might want to be in. We have a pro bono legal clinic that operates out of Putnam County. So we help staff that with student volunteers. And then also thinking about, are there particular causes that students are interested in? How might they want to do that? And if going to law school straight out of DePauw is what is best for them in their journey, or if they want to go and get work experience and get a little clearer on how they see themselves in law school. And then once they're in the point of, I want to go to law school, that's what I want to do, I will help them think about the timing of taking their LSAT. If they need to do LSAT prep, what does that look like? Connecting them to LSAT prep resources. And then application resources as well, because the application is a lengthy process, but has a lot of parts to it. So helping students break those things down, working on their personal statements, getting their law school resumes, and then also thinking about the appropriate law schools that they can apply to, and then also connecting them to law school. So we have a graduate and professional school fair that happens in the fall at our school, and then we also have additional law schools that like to connect with our students. So it's really, I see myself as a connector and then also helping students refine their materials in the process as well.
And you mentioned helping students with courses to take and extracurricular activities if they're interested in law school. What do you typically recommend that students pursue when they come to you and show interest in law school?
Well, it's a variety of things. So students I like to get an understanding of why they think that they want to go to law school and what's really driving that passion and that desire. and how they see themselves interacting with the law. And then going from there based on their interests of if want to understand how the criminal justice system works, if they want to advocate for a particular group of people, really what's underneath what they want to do. We have a great relationship with our local county courthouse, and we've had students intern with the prosecutor's office. And as I mentioned, we have a pro bono legal clinic that operates every month out of there. So we've gotten to help students see what are some of the processes that happen in the local system. And then I have other students who are thinking that they want to be involved in the political sphere and what are some of the ways that they might do that. So we look at political campaigns, getting involved in their hometowns. And then there are also some law firms that offer opportunities. So the other thing that I counsel students on is we have a very active pre-law and public affairs student group on campus who brings in regular speakers to campus. And that is a great way for our students to understand how nuanced the field of law is and how they might see themselves practicing, if it's in the public sector or private sector. And I'd say our alumni have been just a wonderful resource for our students to ask them questions, and to also get some of those little fires burning to think about where they see themselves going in the future and what are some of the ways that they can get involved. So it's very broad and it's also very personalized to each student and their needs.
And when it comes to DePauw alumni that come back to you guys and express an interest in pursuing law school, how do you go about supporting them now that they're out of school, or at least out of DePauw, and not necessarily taking the courses that they would have in undergrad that maybe would have set them up for law school?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things about law is that it really asks people to come from a lot of different areas and welcomes people from a lot of different areas. And so when I talk to an alumnus, I ask them questions about what's their interest in this career change. Have they had any interactions, understanding what the law does, how they see themselves in a career in law, and then guiding them through that process as well. So if it's with support through their personal statements, I do personal statement reviews with alums and our current students. And then I also talk to them about the timing of taking the test if they've thought about how they want to approach taking the LSAT and some ways that they might be able to get involved in maybe some pro bono clinics where they are, or how are they interacting and knowing that law school is the next right step for them. Because I think that can be one of the things of this has always been my dream, but how do we make that reality, and really customizing that to each person that I work with.
And the resources that DePauw provides, is it exclusively open to students and alumni, or do you guys work with students from other schools that maybe don't have access to these pre-law resources?
Yeah, so I have talked to students from other schools, but it's very one-off. Most of our resources are directly for DePauw students. So we have some free test prep resources that we offer through our library, and then we also have highly discounted products from Kaplan Test Prep that we offer to our current students. So if somebody from outside the university is asking for those resources, I would offer them a list of free resources that I know of. And there's also free resources through the lsac.org, and they are the ones that actually run the LSAT test. And they offer the credentialing services where students will apply to law school through as well. So they have their thing called Law Hub, and that is where there's LSAT prep there. That used to be on Khan Academy, if folks are familiar with that. It's moved to lsac.org in their Law Hub area. And those resources are free. And then also, any test prep company also has free test prep. So students can at least take a free test opportunity. And most of those companies also have resources for folks who don't have as many financial supports. And so there's a lot of support out there as well. LSAC also has its own fee waiver system too. So I offer that out to students as well, students and others from outside our university as another way to get resources to help them prepare for this journey.
And obviously, we have three law schools here in Indiana. Does DePauw work with the law schools directly in any way to help students bridge that gap when they're looking at the schools that they can apply to?
Yeah, so we have great relationships with all of the law schools, and I'm very thankful for how they work with our students and encourage our students to think broadly about their careers in the law. We've actually taken students to all three schools, and since my time here, McKinney and Maurer, we've also hosted as well. They've talked to our students and also done workshops with the students on what are they looking for in the law school applications. And then both Maurer and McKinney, we have scholarships with that our students are eligible with them to receive up to half tuition off, and as well as some leadership opportunities. And those scholarships are open to both our current students and our alumni. And we're really fortunate that we are able to offer that and have that with both of the schools as well.
For anyone maybe interested in that are currently at one of the law schools or even at a law firm, do you guys have ways to connect them with prospective students that are interested in getting that firsthand knowledge of what their career could look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest way is usually people are reaching out to me, saying that they're interested in a law field, or if they even want to talk to our students. I connect them with our pre-law group and try to get them a time to talk to the students. But then if it's a person that might want to have one-on-one conversations and feels more comfortable that way, I'm also happy to connect them to individual students. But usually we connect them to the group, and then the one-on-one contact usually happens organically between the students as well. But we also have a large alumni database, so our students can get access to that and reach out to folks too. But that one-on-one networking has been very fruitful, I'd say, for most of our students.
Mhm. So, when it comes to prepping for law school, what are the, I guess, typical course of steps that a student would take in pursuing applications and LSATs? I guess, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so it can look in a variety of ways. I think the first step is realizing that that's what they want to be doing, and getting clear on what does that look like for their life. So, are they wanting to try to go to law school next year, or is this a few years out? And some of that might also depend on when they're going to take the LSAT. The testing calendar gets put up every year, so folks can go in and look to see when those tests are offered. Um, the law school applications open in the fall of every year. So most schools, it is a fall start for your school. You might be starting in the summer, but that is dependent on each school. So it's also understanding, where do you want to go to school? So some of it is, what is the timeline for doing these things, but then also, where are the schools that I want to go to? What types of things are they looking for? I encourage folks to put a list together. The Law Hub also really helps with these types of things as well. So I mentioned that from lsac.org. They have some great resources for students to see what type of things that schools offer. And when I say things, I mean courses, but also clinics that law schools are offering. Are there extracurricular opportunities? Do you want to work with the law review? Are you interested in things like the Innocence Project? What are the matters that are really driving you to want to go to law school? And see how the law schools are actually fitting in with that. Because you might hear that a school is really, really great, but then you realize that that's not where you want to be in the country, or that you realize that you really want to focus on something that school might not specialize in, and getting a little bit clearer idea. There's are a lot of reports also that are offered to students where they can find if there are dual degree programs that they want to do at a law school. So if you're thinking of doing something like public affairs masters, or you want to do an MBA JD program, looking to see if those schools offer that. So I'd say one is figuring out when you want to be going to law school, and then backtracking from there of when do you need to take the LSAT, when do you need to start your applications, and putting a little timeline together. And then from there, excuse me, figuring out what does test prep look like for you? How much time do you have to commit to that? And what are the responsibilities and what are you going to move to help with that?
So, as maybe an example, say a student does the course where they want to apply in the fall. They're here now in the winter slash, I guess, technically spring semester, even though it's winter outside.
Mhm.
What is maybe their timeline look like? What do you recommend they start at and maybe configure the time for studying and all that?
Yeah, so I would say, like, let's say I'm talking to a student who is in their second semester of their junior year. So if they've been looking at, okay, I know I want to apply to law school in the fall, then it's all right. So let's look at LSAT test prep. What are you thinking about doing for that? When do you think you want to take the test? Because usually you want to give yourself, or at least what I talk to students about, is giving themselves anywhere from 3 to 6 months to study for the LSAT. So if they figure that they want to take it over the summer, then we can backtrack from there to figure out a time of when they would want to start their LSAT prep. And then in talking about LSAT prep, asking them to be very honest about how they study best. Do they do better if they are in a structured course? Do they do better if they are make a plan and then they have a study buddy? Really asking students to think about what has helped them succeed in the past and what might help them succeed on this next phase. And then in addition to that, it's not only just studying for the LSAT, taking that step towards law school and then looking at law school lists. That might be something that they would do over the summer after they finish preparing for the LSAT. And then in the fall, preparing to start writing their applications and everything in the fall. And that might be something students work on over the summer as well as working on their law school resume and some personal statements for schools as well. And then in the fall is when they really start applying. Um, you can apply into the spring, but law school applications have been up 15 to 20% in the last 2 years. So getting things in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, can be very advantageous for students. The other thing that I'll add about the law school application
Yeah.
timeline is that also looking at deadlines for schools. So some schools don't have a deadline until March 1st. So technically you could get your applications in that timeline, but if you're really wanting the most amount of resources, so if it's scholarship resources and time to think about what works best for you, applying early is great. But sometimes students wait until early January, early February, and I would say after that, if you're not sure that you want to or you're not committed to it, I would wait until the next application cycle. Um, just to give yourself the best opportunity at getting the admission to the places that you want and also for scholarship opportunities as well.
And this might be a silly question, but I know with like undergraduates, there's often like two batches of applications where it's like early applications and then the regular application. Is there anything like that with law school or does it depend on the school itself?
Yeah, it really depends on each school. So some will have a priority deadline and then they have their final deadline, but it really is school dependent as well.
So switching a little bit, or let me rephrase that. Switching just briefly to talking about the LSAT. I know that it underwent some changes in 2024. Can you tell me a little bit about what those changes were and how kind of what students should be prepared for in that?
Yeah, so in 2024, they removed the logic game section of the LSAT. And that was due to a lawsuit by some visually impaired students that, because in the logic games, you had to do some drawing. And so they had settled that suit. And so then the LSAC reformatted the test to have a second logistical reasoning section. So really now, there's not going to be any logic games that anybody's going to see, maybe in some really old practice materials, but really what students need to be preparing for already are, if they have background in logic, that's really helpful with the logistical reasoning, then also analyzing the reading and writing. So now it's based more off of passages rather than the logic game section. But most, I'd say, up to date test prep materials all have made that update as well. So then the practice tests will also be reflecting that too.
And what would you say maybe is the biggest misconception surrounding law school prep when, students come into you and are ready to take that step?
I'd say the biggest misconception is that students are behind somehow.
Mm.
So I think it's really important for students to get clear on what their motivations are and why they want to be going to law school, and that when they decide the time is right for them, that is the best time because they're working off of their own motivation rather than somebody else's motivation. So I think them being clear about what it is that they want to do and why they want to do it will help guide them in their journey and doing this process, and be very clear about why now is the best time for them. So they can also articulate that to schools, because schools will be able to see that in their materials, and they'll put forward a much stronger application when they decide the time is right for them.
Yeah. Well, I would say of the newer lawyers that I know, most of them did take a gap year or gap years to sort out what they wanted to do. And I feel like that, I don't know if that's necessarily more common, but I think it plays into that misconception of they're out of time, it's too late because they didn't jump right into law school right after graduating undergrad.
Yeah, and I'd say just in general, it's much more common for people to be taking gap years between undergrad and graduate or professional school. And many schools appreciate that in terms of you're coming in with some extra perspective that you've gotten outside of school. And that I think can help students be clearer. So, law school is not going away. We will be definitely needing lawyers and people who are skilled in understanding the law for a very, very long time. So the more that we can help people to understand why it is that they want to go to law school, allow them to have that perspective to help keep them motivated and understanding what they're going to use their law degree for, can be really, really helpful, I think, in their motivation in doing law school, because it's not an easy thing.
Mhm.
It's definitely takes persistence and dedication. And so for folks who are interested in doing that, the clearer they are about their motivations, I think that really helps them as they go through the process as well.
And now throughout all of this prep, obviously you said LSAT prep can take 3 to 6 months. How do you advise students to take care of their physical and mental and emotional health while they're preparing for quite a feat that is applying for law school?
Yeah, that's a great question. I very much support people's well-being in general. So I like to ask people about what are the things that they do that help them be themselves. So what are the things that help support them? Is that regular physical activity? How are they adding fun into their lives? Because we could be serious, but we also need to have some time to let our whole person really shine. And then also, what are the ways that they know that they support themselves well? So is doing a more structured test prep program appropriate for them because they like to have that time already blocked out, carved out for themselves? And then do they also do that in other ways? So is that time with their family? Is that regular, like I mentioned, regular physical activity practice? Do they have spiritual practices that are really important to them? So really thinking about all of the parts of themselves and making sure that they're giving space for that. And if needed, also having some mental health resources. So if that's having a counselor that they're talking about some of the stress with, if test anxiety is an issue, definitely seeking some mental health counseling for that. to help work through some of those strategies as well. So really being in an honest and open space with themselves as they go through this process, but also having some of those supports as they go through something that can be stressful and lots of pressure, but there are ways to structure it that can be supportive for each individual as they're going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap things up, if a prospective law student or somebody who's getting ready to be in the thick of it is listening, what, I guess, is one piece of advice or maybe encouragement that you have for them during this time?
I would say one piece of advice is, or maybe it's two. One is to why now? Like, why is right now the best time for you to start? And I say that not in a way of like questioning their motivation, but yeah, but really to know, like, yes, right now is a great time to start, because if you realize that you're not going to start test prepping until next year or later this year, it's great to know that now, so that you can create a plan for yourself and also understand uh, maybe you need to adjust some things in your life to help you be in the best space for you to start this journey. So getting clear on what are your motivations. So yes, we're in January and maybe it's a goal setting thing of this is something you've always wanted to do. Start thinking about what that would actually look like, and getting clear on what do you need to succeed in this. And also reaching out to your university. So if you've already graduated from a university, there are lots of resources. Most pre-law advisors will help our alums. And so that's also a great place to start as well, is reaching out to your university to start this conversation too. I'd say one of the other things I could say for advice and for people is giving yourself grace through this process, that there are ups and downs with the whole thing. So rather than feeling like, I'd say persistence is very important and will be helpful not only just through applying to law school and studying for the LSAT, but also once you are at law school and then once you transition into working. So being kind to yourself through this process, but also understanding what type of supports you need to be successful.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Indiana Lawyer Podcast. If you're interested in finding more information on the law school application process, check out our show notes for links to everything that was discussed in the episode. And please share this episode if you know someone who might find this conversation helpful. As always, you can read more legal news from around the state on our website at theindianalawyer.com. There you can also check out my previous podcast episode about preparing for the LSAT, as well as more podcasts from across the IBJ Media Network.
From broadcast to podcast, Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is now available anytime on YouTube or in your podcast feed. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcast or at ibjpodcast.com.
Want to give your team a real edge? The IBJ Group Plan delivers unlimited access to every story, every report, every video from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business for your whole team. Cover some or all of your employees with one simple payment. The more you add, the more you save. It's smart, it's flexible, and it saves you up to 30% off the standard rate. Already have IBJ subscribers in your office? Group up and save big. Learn more and get started now at ibj.com/group-plan.